On this channel, I'm usually pretty negative about events, but I like events. I like them when they're good. And there's been certainly plenty of times when comic book events have led to more sales, brought a lot of excitement and energy into the comic shop. And so it's not a blanket statement. It's not like they need to stop doing events. They just need to do the right events. I wanted to get into what makes a right event, what makes it, what brings people to the shop. And when was the last time we really saw this? Hey everybody, this is Perch. Keep in mind with every conversation, there's what you personally like and then what's good for business. And I realize for the majority of people, the vast majority of people listening to this, what's good for business really isn't your concern. You care about what you like, and that's totally fine. I think if you're a customer, you shouldn't have to worry about things like attach rate and what's going to sell well in the shop and sell through. You just buy what you like. That's really all you need to care about. At the same time, I do wish more fans would recognize that, shops are trying to run a business. What's curious about the current comics movement is that in a lot of cases, there's a lot of talk about how the publishers are not fulfilling their end of the bargain by giving things for shops to sell, and that they're not wrong. Their publishers in many ways aren't fulfilling their end of the bargain. But at the same time, when shops do make choices for their own financial success, that seems to get people mad too. It's kind of a no-win situation if you're a shop. At any rate, when it comes to events at various times have been a windfall to comic shops. They've brought in more customers, they brought in energy, they have created a lot of tie-ins that people have bought, even though they didn't mean it. And if you can get an event where people are really excited to see where it goes, it's a very positive thing for comic shops. And the secret is really kind of in just what I said. If you can get the customers really interested in what's going to come next, what's next in that chapter. In fact, if the event is red hot, like frankly, Civil War was a red hot event. You may like it, you may not like it, but even customers who would come into the shop and they'd be ready for that next issue of Civil War. It's not out yet. It's like a week or two away. And they would just start buying other comics in the line that they didn't intend to buy just because their excitement for the event was so high. Now, Civil War, in almost all respects, did the event kind of game perfectly. It sold a ton of copies. It was definitely well received by customers. They were excited to see it. They were ready for more. And there's been a handful of other events like that, but Civil War is almost the textbook definition of an event that really got people excited. Other events that fell into that, well, Secret Invasion actually started that way. When the very first issue of Secret Invasion came out, it was kind of a big moment. It did get people excited, and there was that general interest in the event. Issue 2 kept it up, and then it kind of plummeted from there. Age of Ultron was one that people weren't terribly looking forward to, and then that first comic kind of knocked it out of the park. People got very excited. By the time we got into, Wolverine and the Invisible Woman do Back to the Future, a lot of that interest was dying, but it started out well. And for a decent amount of time, Marvel kind of got the reputation. In fact, a lot of comic shops felt this way, where the events started out good and then kind of petered out. Fear itself was this way. Even stuff like Axis was a little bit this way. But Fear itself is a perfect example of an event where the first issue or two, hammers and transformation. For whatever reason, fans tend to get really excited when villains or heroes get transformed, when they, even kind of against their will, when they get turned into something else, and there's a big status quo shift. It is something that gets people interested. It gets people to buy more comics. They get pretty excited about it. The problem is if you have no other real, plan beyond that, people are going to get transformed. There'll be some fighting, and then the good guys will win. That's where it all falls apart. Um, Over in DC land, I think that Final Crisis definitely had this momentum. The trade dress was really hot on the series, and it just visually got things to pop. And there was a general excitement about where it went. Now, this event too, I think right around the time that there was a time skip, the Flashes kind of ran into the future, and then we found an Earth where Wonder Woman had been consumed by Apocalypse and was evil and was riding around on a hellhound. That was probably the high point of that series where people were really, really hot for it. And then the last month or so just went sideways in a lot of cases for that event. As much as I thought it was very painful, Identity Crisis was that way. Now here's something that a bunch of you will disagree with, and it started out kind of medium, and then it got a lot hotter in the shop, and then it collapsed. But Heroes in Crisis is an example where, as a story, I just hated every step of where that thing was going. But from a shop perspective, it started out kind of okay, and then like issue 2 through 4 got very hot in the store. It got to the point that, and it wasn't all that people were loving it. It wasn't like everybody was really excited about this event. It was kind of like watching. If you ever go to YouTube and you Google or you search on YouTube for Russian car crashes, I don't know if you've ever done that, but there's like hundreds of videos of just camera footage of cars like crashing into each other and just horrible accidents. And you could spend an afternoon just doing nothing but watching those. And that was a little bit like what Heroes in Crisis got to. It got to this point where it was like watching a beautiful mess. Clayman's artwork was really good. There's definitely a feeling of creeping dread. There's a lot of anticipation of what's coming next. And then, it's like, oh, they're certainly not going to do this for Wally, right? There's no way they would do this to Wally. And then, oh, they're definitely doing it to Wally. So it did collapse. But for a while there, like that event was nuts in terms of people were rabid to kind of find out where it was going, almost in kind of like a watching a snuff film kind of way. They weren't happy with where it was going, but they were interested to see where it was happening next. The last comic that felt like that in a shop for me was honestly One More Day, where you had a definite feeling that this was not going anywhere you wanted it to go, but you showed up to the shop and you bought it and you're just really pissed as it went on. But the other question here is why don't events capture that kind of Civil War feel? Well, I mean, first off, it's not easy just to magically create a hot selling event. It's not like you snap your fingers and then you can just make one. It doesn't work like that. Also, it's the world is in kind of a different place right now, where a lot of those ideas have been burned through too quickly. One of the things, for better or worse, that Mark Millar had done is he brought concepts up that were sort of new. Now, not all of them worked, but they were relatively new to comics, and he explored them and he did things with them. And by the way, Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, both called Millar derivative at times, but he had a way of bringing concepts to the table that felt fresh. And the challenge we have now is a lot of the events do not feel that way. They feel very tired coming in. In recent years, the Absolute Carnage event almost got to that point that it was a can't miss, brought a lot of energy. And by the way, throughout this entire video, as I'm saying can't miss, really popular, I understand there's been events that have had high sales or low sales and everything else, and I'm not mentioning all of them. This is more than just pure sales numbers, because a lot of those sales numbers are heavily influenced by things like variants and incentive programs and other things going on that are boosting up the series. But there was a fundamental difference between, say, Civil War, Secret Invasion, and Secret Wars 3, honestly, or Secret Wars, whatever. That comic and the interest and the excitement and the very high sense of I've got to buy this kind of behavior that we got, versus stuff like War of the Realms. War of the Realms, or Secret Invasion, not Secret Invasion, Secret Empire. They had a feeling of, when are we going to get done with this? And let's get to the big reveal and see what we think about it. It was almost a disconnected interest is how fans had. They were interested, but in a disconnected way. There wasn't that rabid kind of excitement for the event, and that rabid excitement leads to more sales. That's why shops are always on the lookout for them. But they're just, War of the Realms sold. I think the first issue sold quite well, but there were so many variant covers, and there was just so many other things going on that comics like Civil War didn't have. So in many ways, the events of today are being propped up by kind of a lot of various ordering things that are going on that doesn't translate to pure fan interest in the series. And it's that fan interest in the series. It's hard to replicate, but man, if you do it, that's the magic of the event. Like I said at the very beginning, there are plenty of events I remember very, very fondly. I liked the very first Secret Wars event. I know that that was a tie-in promotion. There was a for to toys, and there was a bunch of other things going on, but it was fun. It felt both fun and impactful. And I think that you just today the events feel like it's like, well, it's March and we have to do another event, and so they feel very, very perfunctory. And on top of that, they feel like they're all kind of going to the same playbook. With comics like Secret War, the first one, I like the Jonathan Hickman Secret Wars. I did. I'm trying to think of some recent events that I've actually liked. I know there's some out there that I've enjoyed, but it is the style of the event is very different. The excitement generally in the store is not where it used to be, and I think that's what's missing. And you see the publishers now doing more and more and more events to try and make up for the fact that that kind of attach rate, that excitement around the event, just isn't there anymore. I think Doomsday Clock kind of had some aspects of this, but then the late schedule kind of killed it. Metal had some aspects of this, but then it felt like Metal was very much kind of a popcorn event. It was over very fast, and it didn't create kind of the bigger buzz. I mean, part of the problem that I think Metal and Death Metal has is it's so far out there in terms of the concepts and everything that's going on. It's a little bit hard to read that and then open up your next comic in your stack, Joker War, and kind of get into that. It's just hard to bounce back and forth. And I think that's a problem that a lot of the events have. But what about you? What was the last event you were really, really excited about? Like legitimately excited? It was something that got you excited about comics in general, and you wanted to buy more because of it. Give me leave that in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, send me an email, follow me on social media. Most importantly, thanks for listening.